On this episode of the Whiskey Tornado, we review a bourbon that's been in my Bourbon of the Year running every year since I started this channel. Elijah Craig Barrel Proof was introduced in 2013 and is released on an allocated basis 3 times per year in January, May, and September. Each release features a different proof, and up until 2023 consisted of bourbon aged at least 12 years. In mid-2023, Heaven Hill announced that they would remove Elijah Craig Barrel Proof 12-year age statement and instead now include an age statement that will vary per release. Elijah Craig Barrel Proof B524 comes in at 130.6 proof and 11 years and 2 months old. Welcome back to the Whiskey Tornado. I'm your host, Lance, and we are reviewing one of my favorite bourbons, not only because it tastes amazing, but it is some of the best value that you can find on the market. And in a world where distilleries are getting outrageous with their pricing, I have to commend Heaven Hill for keeping Elijah Craig Barrel Proof at that $60, $65 to $85 price point. I picked up this bottle for $68 on the shelf at A1, which means it goes into our Bourbon of the Year running if it's good enough. For those of you new to the channel, some of our criteria for Bourbon of the Year is it has to have been found on the shelf and near MSRP. So I'm excited to try this one out. Let's get a pour of Elijah Craig B524. Get into this one. They rarely disappoint. We're splitting hairs when we review this one. All right. For those of you also new to the channel, we will review this. I will let you guys know if it is a buy or pass based on whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or bourbon aficionado. And then at the end of the video, I will let you guys know if I think you should buy extras of this bottle and bunker them. All right. With all that being said, let's get into the nose. Cheers, everybody. Oh, man. I'm liking what I'm smelling already. We've got honey, there's some cinnamon, there's pralines, caramel, there's a like dusty rickhouse aspect to this. It's your quintessential Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. If you like Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, you are gonna love the nose on this. There's nothing to hate. Is it as good as Russell's 15 nose? No, probably not, because it doesn't go to that like sweet aged oak. For those of you that have been a big Elijah Craig Barrel Proof fans, you'll know C923 won our Bourbon of the Year last year. That is much older, much sweeter oak than this. This is just sweet. Man, smells fantastic. Let's get into the palate. Cheers, everybody. Hell yeah. Oh my gosh. This is Fat Kid whiskey. It's Fat Kid whiskey at 130.6 proof. It does not drink 130.6 proof. There's like no hug in my chest. Oh my goodness, this is good. Wow. I'd never guess this at 130 proof, I don't believe. Let me get my head straight. Let me take one more sip. I was just kind of overwhelmed by the sweetness of it. Oh man, just a beautiful balance of sweetness and spice. There's honey, there's cinnamon, maybe even a dusting of cherry. I mean, it's light. If there's any fruit notes in this, it's light, but I do believe there's a little bit of cherry in there. Again, like I was getting on the nose, this is, if you loved Elijah Craig C923, I believe you'll love this, but I think those are two different animals. Elijah Craig C923, I believe was over 13 years old. And that extra time in the barrel gave it those really dark, sweet oak notes. This doesn't have necessarily those dark, sweet oak notes, but it's got sweet honey, sweet cinnamon, and maybe just a hint of cherry, but man, is this beautiful. And the finish is forever. One of the things that was lacking a little bit for me with Russell's 15 was the finish. This thing delivers in spades on the finish. It just goes and goes and goes. Oh man, this is fantastic. Let me have another sip. Cheers, everybody. Now that sip, it's honey, a little bit of nuttiness is coming through. There's still a little bit of cherry, not medicinal, just a faint hint of that cherry. but it is just sweet and spicy. But the sweetness, the honey sweetness on this is really overwhelming. This is a Fat Kid whiskey at 130.6 proof. Just absolutely beautiful. Man, way to go, Heaven Hill. Man, I love this batch. B524. Even at 11 years, 2 months, we were all worried that once they took the 12-year age statement off, Elijah Craig was going to fall apart. It's not. It hasn't been. I think they're just messing with us now, showing us what they can do with 11-year bourbon. That is fantastic. There's nothing to hate about this release. It will be in my Bourbon of the Year running at the end of the year when we do our live stream with Patreon members. We will have this in the blind. Elijah Craig Barrel Proof has been in that every year since we started the channel about 5 years ago. So one of my favorite releases, just absolutely perfect and unbelievable that I found this on the shelf for $68, and people are, you know, nearly killing themselves for Russell's 15 at $250, and who knows what they're paying for that on secondary. While it's good at more than double the price, I just buy Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. You just can't go wrong. So let's talk about whether this is a buy for beginners, intermediates, and bourbon aficionados. For beginners, I would say this is a pass, just because at 130 proof, it's hot. This is gonna burn your mouth. You're probably not gonna like it. You're not gonna enjoy it. Now, if you want to take a flyer on it, you can. I would advise you add some water to bring the proof down. But as a beginner, you're probably not gonna enjoy the complexity of this that I'm talking about. You might not be able to get all the notes if you're not acclimated to that higher proof point in bourbon. For intermediates, I would say, yes, this is a buy. But I would also say you might need to add water to this. It just depends what proof points you're used to. 130.6 proof is up there, and that's getting you into barrel proof, which is another animal. So this still might kick you in the nuts and toss you around the room a little bit, and it might be a little too much. But don't worry, you'll get there. For bourbon aficionados, I'm not telling you guys you don't already know. This is a buy. Even before I review it, I don't review every batch of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof anymore, just because I feel like, what's the point? They're all buys. They're all fantastic. We're splitting hairs. We're talking about 10% differences, 15% differences from batch to batch. But when I find a really good batch, I'm going to review it for you guys. And B524 really stands out for me. And the last point, is this a bunkerable bottle? Yes, it is. I would bunker this. I would bunker a lot of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof batches, but B524 is really good. Now, do I think this is as good as C923? I don't know that I would say that. For me, I love those darker sweet oak profile notes, and C923 was like one of my favorite Elijah Craig Barrel Proof batches ever. So that's up there. This is under that, but it's still really good, and it's certainly going to be in Bourbon of the Year running. All right, guys, that does it for this review. If you're interested in barrel picks I do, there's a link in the description below. You can go to barrelsforhope.com. That is our 501c3 charity organization that I started with a couple other whiskey channels, and we donate all proceeds to charity. Last year, we donated $40,000 to charity. And if you'd like to just support the Whiskey Tornado in general, you can go to our Patreon and support us for as little as $2 a month. Thanks for your love and support. Appreciate you guys dearly. We will see you on the next review. Cheers, everybody. Heaven Hill keeps doing it, coming through with a banger.